All right, I'm ready. I'm here.
Hey, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's good to
Did you know
see
that
you.
you don't own the lake?
I do actually. I dug it myself.
That's right. Well, I'm happy to have you on. It's been a long time coming, obviously, considering we've talked all the time. Unfortunately, did not get to link up in Green Bay. Had trolling motor issues that day or battery issues that day.
Oh, dude, I had nothing but issues that day. I got up there and my I've had just a battery nightmare this year, and yeah, my trolling motor batteries were shot. So I got there and realized that I had no way to bounce around. So I kind of drifted around for a few hours and live scoped a few, and then put her on the trailer and went home. So just one of them days.
It's because you spend too much time on the Fox. That's why
Well,
those batteries are dead.
yeah, right. Right. I actually only made it up there 3 times this year. I barely fished
Really?
the Fox. Yeah,
I
yeah. I
felt like
just
it was a lot more because you told me that you were sick of it, and I figured you were there just pounding them.
no, I'm just like generally sick of that river. Like I
Yeah,
love that river, don't get me wrong. But here, I'm I'm sick of that river, but it's just the same, the same quality of fish every single day, So and it's the same bite every year. So I just kind of I don't know. It took me a while to kind of get in the fishing mode this year. I just kind of mentally was out of it a little bit and just really didn't feel like going up to the Fox every time I tried. Every guide trip I had scheduled, we had like gale force winds or
yeah.
80-mile winds with snow, and we just ended up rescheduling most of the trips. So kind of didn't really pay to go out there and just fun fish or whatever. And then we had a early start to the tournament season, so I was on the road for that when normally I'd be down at the Fox. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
that's we'll kind of segue into that. And I guess for a lot of you guys that are listening that maybe didn't read the description, Max Wilson, big time walleye tournament fisherman. I know how much he loves bass too. We can't forget that. But I'll just kind of let you take it away, introduce yourself. I mean, I've heard this story 100 times because I've followed your career for a long time and listened to all the podcasts and everything. But just for the folks that may not know who you are, where you're from, kind of how you came up, because you're quite a bit younger than I am, and you haven't really been in the tournament scene for too terribly long, I feel like. So take it away. Tell us all about yourself, then we can talk fishing.
Yeah. I'm actually 26 years old. I started tournament fishing when I was a sophomore in high school, between sophomore and junior year of high school. One day I just kind of decided I was competitive, but I was really bad at sports. I played rugby and football, and I've been this height since seventh grade. So everyone else started growing, and I stopped. So, I realized that I had a passion for fishing, and I decided one day just on a whim to try it, and we actually ended up taking second in the very first tournament I ever fished. And I think it was on a Tuesday was when I Googled just local tournaments because I was driving up to Lake Winnebago 7 days a week fishing it, and I was like, ah, screw it, I want to try a tournament. And I Googled it, found a Sheboygan Walleye Club tournament that weekend, and I hopped in it, and we actually weighed 12.96 and 12.97 won it, so we just missed the win. And so that was kind of addicting, I was like, wow, someone handed me money for fishing that day, so
Yeah.
that addiction started. And that first year was a really good year for me. You kind of get into that false sense of confidence when you have that, everyone hits winning streaks, and
Sure.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is easy, and so really just kind of went full force, full steam ahead, and fished throughout the rest of high school, and then ended up joining the Marine Corps right out of high school. I left for a year of training, stuff like that. I was in the reserve, so I about just over a year I was gone, and then as soon as I came back, I went started fishing again, started working a full-time job. But the fishing, it was a kind of a come to Jesus moment. I got my butt kicked for quite some time there, and that was kind of the okay, you're not as good as you think you are, and it really drove me to to learn, and just get better. And it's been what, 8 years, coming on 9 years on tour now fishing. And it's been quite the wild ride. I was fortunate enough to win the NWT championship when I was 21. In 2018. We also won, me and Isaac won team of the year for the MWC, both in 18 and 19. We went back to back. So ever
Nice.
since then, we've had I've had a successful career, but it's just been a wild journey along the way. It's taken me so far, it's taken me all across the globe. I'm on the USA open water team. I'm the team captain of that, and we compete in Europe, South Africa, all over the world for that. So walleyes have taken me just about everywhere you could possibly go.
Didn't you do like a Xander tournament or so, like a Xander perch tournament or something in Europe?
Yep. So every year we have the world championship for the USA angling, and it's somewhere different every year. My first year we competed in England, and then shortly after that we went to South Africa, and then last year, finally after COVID, we got started up again. So we were in the Czech Republic last year, and those are predator tournaments. So it's not just one species like we have here in the States. Over
Right.
there, it's whatever the local predator is, you know. So England and Czech Republic, it was pike, perch, and zander, which is the
Hmm.
European walleye. And then in Africa, it was bass, a couple of different species of catfish, and a couple of like their local like tilapia and stuff like that. So,
That's wild.
yeah, it's an added twist. You know, you only have 2 days of practice. You know, so it's difficult. You know, and most of us are walleye guys, so you know we think going over there we're going to target zander. And so far, every tournament we've been in has been one off of either perch or pike. So it's a little bit of a learning curve trying to learn a different species, especially you know, in a whole different continent, because I mean, you know, you know, even walleyes fish differently from how you would fish them in Kansas to how
Oh
you
yeah,
fish them in, you know. So
big
it's
time.
a it's a learning curve, but it's something cool that you know, I have a lot of pride in doing it. You know, get to represent your country, and there's a lot that I've taken from over there, that I've learned from anglers over there that I've got to utilize over here. You know, and so it's definitely been a really cool opportunity for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, man. That was super cool to see. I mean, like you said, just an amazing opportunity to be. Who else is on that team?
So it's me, John Poyer,
Oh yeah,
and then Nick Shirts, and then Ryan Buddy. So it's
cool.
this year's team. It was probably one of the most accomplished teams that you know I've ever fished with. I mean, John's won 2 national championship. I won one. The one that I won, Nick Shirts took second in, and Shirts is on the ice team. I mean, he's one of the most success. I mean, that you could put that guy in a sewage pond, he come out smelling like
Mhm.
roses with 10-pound walleyes. You know,
Yeah.
he's an absolute hammer. And Ryan Buddy's a freaking stick. He's a Delta airline pilot, so he flies all over. So he's a lot of overseas experience. He's been fishing and doing all the shore banging over there. And then he's a Lake Erie boy, but he's one of the few Lake Erie boys that I know that can go anywhere in the country and just wreck fish. So
Yeah.
it's a group of hammers, and I've learned a lot fishing with those boys.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how did the Illinois tournament go?
Um,
Not super good.
yeah,
That wasn't
it
a
went.
rhetorical question. Most people are probably going to want to know how your derby season's going.
Oh, it's been a mess so far this year. I mean, it's been the best. You know, the Spring Valley was the best worst tournament I've ever had in my life. So I finished 103rd. Got my behind absolutely handed to me. And one of my worst events I've ever had as a pro. And to say it was demoralizing is an understatement. But the reason why Spring Valley was so important, that's the home of my late best friend, Mike Hansen. He was a
Hmm.
teammate, travel partner for many years, and he passed away from COVID last year. And me and JJ, his tournament partner, we won the MWC down there last year in his honor, first tournament that he hadn't been there for.
Yep.
Um, and what made this tournament so amazing was JJ ended up winning that event.
Yeah.
So I don't think I could ever have been happier. If I even if I had won it, I don't think I could have been happier, because that was the, you know, the ending to the story that we've been writing for years.
Yep.
Um, you know, and to have a behind the scenes firsthand experience for that. I mean, he won it out of my boat, so I claim half the win, you know,
There
because
you
it was
go.
out of my boat. So
Yeah.
um, I take half credit for it, but no, just to see JJ finally get that, you know, get that big win, get it from Mike, you know, and to see JJ now have his shot at fishing the pro side, and this was his big start. We've been working for that for years to get him there, and you know, it's a family. I mean, you know, the fish, you know, your fishing friends are your family, and
Yep.
when you travel tournaments, you know, like we do, you know, those are the first guys that kind of took me under their wing. And to, you know, they've been there for every single big moment of my career, every win. You know, him and Mike were the first ones to, you know, pick me up off my feet and give me a giant bear hug when I won. So to be there for JJ when he won, you know, I always tell people it's the coolest. One of the coolest stories from that week was where JJ was going was where we won the MWC last year, and it was Mikey's spot. and you had to lock through to get there. And it was dangerous because you're dealing with lock traffic, barge traffic and everything. And so all day I'm like a worried parent, right? I'm telling my cameraman that was following me around, like, God, I just hope JJ makes it. I hope JJ makes it. I hope he has a good day. I'm just like, I could care less about myself at that point. I'm just worrying about JJ.
Yeah.
And I'm standing in the weigh-in line, and my camera guy was talking to the other camera guy that we had following us around, and he was following Hoyer and Dewey and all of them. And he goes, he goes, I heard someone lock through and caught an 8-pounder. And I whipped my head around so fast that it damn near snapped. And I go, well, what did you just say? And he like looked at me, and he's a young kid, and he looked at me like, because he couldn't tell me any information about what other boats were doing throughout the
Right.
week. And he like looked at me, and I told him, I said, the tournament's over right now. I said, unless you want to get like Chinese water tortured, you're gonna tell me what you just said. And he goes, I heard a boat lock through and caught an 8-pounder. I said, okay, what type of boat? And he goes, it was an aluminum Triton. And I'm over there like, oh my God. Because they catch an 8-pounder on the Illinois River, that's like catching a 50-pounder anywhere else.
Right.
I mean, it just
Which is
does not.
primarily like a sauger fishery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
for the most part.
if you get a walleye, like you're doing, like it's getting better now, but like it used to be, if you got a walleye, you won the tournament. And
Right.
I'm over there, all of a sudden I'm nervous, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and I asked him, like, so did he make it back through the lock? He goes, yeah, he locked down. And I'm over there jumping up and down, like, and I'm over there on shoreline waiting for him. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like checking my watch nervously, because it's getting close to check-in time. And 2 minutes before check-in, I see the little, we call it baby Triton. I see baby Triton come around the bend, and I'm over there like, let's go, and he came
Yeah.
in, and I asked him, I'm like, please God, tell me you got 5. He goes, I only got 3. He goes, but I'm like, you got a big one, I know. And I opened the box and I saw 2 big ones in there, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh my God, he freaking did it, So the party that we had after, and that moment of being able, just, I mean, me and Isaac were bawling our eyes out, we're
mm-hmm.
hugging. It was a huge moment. So it was a great start. I wish Mike would have probably given me a little bit more than 103rd place worth of fish, but
Yeah.
overall it was a fun tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun one to watch too, just with that whole story. I used to talk to Mike quite a bit about saugers a couple years ago. He would
Yeah.
reach out, we would talk and swap pictures back and forth. I mean, we catch big saugers down here, like up to 22 and a half, 23 inches, which for most people who are listening, that's a pretty big sauger,
Yeah. Oh
especially
yeah.
pre-spawners. So, well, that's cool. So what's the next stop then?
So I got an aim this weekend on Winnebago, and then after that we got the NWTs coming to Winnebago. So I actually live 15 minutes from Winnebago, so I get to be at
Mm-hmm.
home for the next little bit, which is nice. So I don't have to be on the road quite as much. And
Yeah.
once the weather kind of calms down a little bit, I'll be out there just about every day.
Yeah, it was unreal. Like the week that I was up in Green Bay, I mean, the weather was, I mean, it wasn't like terrible. We had one and a half blow days, like really bad ones. And then the day after I leave, then it's like 80 degrees all week. All those fish are dumping. And now
Yep.
it's back to snowing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a beautiful week. I mean, I was up at the Rainy River for the first part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fishing in a t-shirt, and I actually came home a day early because I got so sunburnt that I was just in so much pain, and I didn't think like northern Minnesota, almost Canada, I'm gonna need my sun shirts, what I mean? So I
Yeah,
didn't pack them, and I'm
right.
over there just roasting, and I actually came back, and we went bluegill fishing in the channels on Bago, and it was 63-degree water, and then we went out to Sturgeon Bay, out there, and it was ice when I left, and it was 45-degree waters, 47-degree water. I'm like, what the heck,
Yeah.
what the heck? Like, this is just unbelievable.
Yeah, the east side's good right now. That's I'll be looking forward to coming up and seeing you and Solberg too. That I think I just booked Beach Harbor Resort for my dad and I, even though I mean it's like, half hour, 45 minutes south or whatever where we're gonna fish and stuff. That was the closest one.
Well, the nice thing is, even if it's like a little blowy up there, you can go like out right in front of Sturgeon Bay, out Larson's and stuff like that,
Oh yeah.
and you can get some really nice fish out there. I
Mm-hmm.
I guide out that side most of like July and August, and if the fish are being finicky up there, I go up towards or go right out Larson's area, and we catch a ton of real, same quality of fish. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that whole east side can be beautiful that time of year.
I know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've only ever really been up to Door County in like mid to late May for smallies. Never done the summertime
I
stuff.
swear to our Lord and Savior, if I see you touch a trolling rod in August, I'm something. Done,
That would
done.
be weird. I would consider it right now at night. Up there maybe because it was fun.
Yeah, no, that's
But
fun when they do it. I started we were out 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and we were cat like I sent you that video. We
mhm.
started casting them, and oh my God, it is the most fun thing I've ever done in my life. We were I was watching them on Livescope come up and eat the P10 as we're casting at them, and it was like you're over there like working like a jerk bait and watch them come up, and I'm like, oh my God, and they
Yeah,
just knock it out of your hand. It's
yeah,
super cool.
it
I
was
think
really
we
fun.
six to
It was a good trip.
like 7 over 28 in a matter of like 25 minutes, right at like the golden hour. It was
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean that well, my 30 and a half, that was like right before the sun set and like stopped filming for the day, was just like kind of over it, especially after the drive the day before. And then like in the first 10 minutes, the one rod that goes off, it was that fish. And I was like, okay, we're done. Let's go home.
Yeah.
Back to the
How
shop.
how heavy was it?
10 and 3/4. So I mean,
Jeez,
this
that's a
one
good one.
behind me from 3 years ago was 30, but it was 11 and a quarter. So
Jesus,
get a
Jesus. There's
30 and a
just
half
something
that's
big
10
that
and
time of
three
year. I love
quarters.
it. I never really go up to Ocano just because I hate dealing with the crowds, but it is like
Dude,
if you
this
can hit it
this year
right.
was it's like nothing I've ever seen. It reminded me of Rainy River because I fished the Rainy River run once and it was like Birchdale where
Yep.
you have to park like a mile and a half away.
It was so it I got there the one day I went. And so I used to fish Ocano like back when everyone was on the Sturgeon Bay side
Hmm.
fishing that. So nobody was at Ocano. And this was 10, 12 years ago. And you'd go out there and you'd get out there and you'd be the only boat. You maybe have two, three, four boats out there,
That's what I
and you
heard.
catch all these, fish by yourself. And then now, I got there at it was at 6:45 and the line was all the way to the highway. And I'm like,
Was
oh,
that was good was that Good Friday or the Saturday the
it
next
was Good
Saturday?
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was
That
that
was
was
it. I
insane. Well,
mean,
I mean, and that morning too, we were talking about this last night with my buddies. Dude, was the ramp still an ice skating rink by the time you
oh,
got there?
it was bad. I didn't launch there. I turned around. I went to the yacht club farther upriver.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was funny too because like my buddy pulled in right before me at to breakwater,
Hmm.
and by the time he launched, I was already out for an hour before he even got like launched his boat. I mean, it
Right.
was just ridiculous. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I think
which
Park 2 is still frozen at the time, so nobody
yeah,
could
you
really
had
do.
part two, and then you had uh the yacht club, and that
Hmm.
launch sucks because there's no where to tie your boat off, so you gotta beach it into like the big rocks and stuff like that. So I was
Is that the
lucky.
one in the river or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah. You pass it as you go to the breakwater. It's
right.
right on your hand side there. But I had someone
We had to
dump
put
me
in there
in.
last year because everything was still locked up at Breakwater and Park 2. I
Okay.
didn't like
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah. I feel you. It's
Miguel didn't
it's
either with his brand new nitro that he had just gotten, having to beach it there, figure something out.
that's it's fine. Those glass boats love rocks.
That's right. That's what I always tell people too. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
You're good. Just send her hard. That's what insurance is for.
Yeah. So
Oh,
let's talk Livescope. Hold on. I have a client calling me, but he's gonna have to wait. Um, when did you
life
first
scope.
start using
Whatever.
Livescope? Did you get on board like right after it came out, or did you wait a little bit?
So I was one of the first guys to actually have it. Because I had the original Panoptics on my
Right.
boat.
Yeah.
And so I ran the OG Panoptics, and it's kind of funny how I discovered Livescope myself was almost an accident. So I had Panoptics, it was off the back of the boat, and I used it when I was in Canada for like vertical jigging and stuff. I'm like, wow, this
Hmm.
is the coolest thing ever. And then I had it for ice fishing, and I'm like, God, this thing's super heavy and like bulky because I had the stock battery that came with it, and
Yeah.
like it was just too much of a pain to bring with ice fishing, right? So I had actual live scope installed on my boat. This was 2019. And so I had it installed on my boat. I had it put on the trolling motor, but I never used it. I
Hmm.
really didn't know what it was capable of. And, it was like, okay, this is cool, but whatever. Well, we were on the Detroit River and Isaac had turned it on. And Isaac's like a super high energy dude. He's always moving, always like talking or doing whatever, right?
Hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, like I heard him go quiet, right? And like he just went quiet, and it felt like a dog on point, right?
Yeah.
And I look over, and he's just locked in, and he's just like yo-yoing a fish, and you see his bait, and there's like three fish just going like this as we're drifting, and it's chasing it, and he's like, oh my God, that's super cool. Well, like an idiot, I was like, yeah, that's cool. And then never really thought of anything after that. Well, fast forward to July. I was on Leech Lake for an aim, and it was the day before the tournament. And where I had side image. So I had a 93 SV up front, and all I had on it was Livescope and side imaging, right? And so I was on this rock pile, and I turned it on because I wanted to turn on side imaging, but I turned it on and it was on Livescope, and my trolling motor was turned like this, and I just straightened it out. And when I straightened it out, all of a sudden I look and I'm like, that looks like a bunch of like suspended fish in front of me. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at, but so I kind of like snuck up to him with I had a blue chrome jigging wrap tied on,
Of
and
course you did.
absolutely.
Of course you did.
There's a reason. But I snuck up to him, and I pitched to him. And as I pitched to him, like there's a mark here, I dropped it here, and all of a sudden that fish, just before I even hit bottom, 20 3/4. And I set the hook and I looked at my partner and I said, what the hell was that? Like that was the coolest thing
Yeah.
I've ever seen in my life. And so I caught a couple like smallmouth and walleyes with it. I'm like, well, that's cool. So the next day, we went to a different spot, and I'm vertical jigging all of these fish. There's this huge wolf pack, and I'm vertical jigging, and they're coming up and they're chasing me, and I'm ice fishing these things. And like that was the only way I was catching them, because it was, I mean, they were just so finicky. And it
Hmm.
was funny because there's a guy from Minnesota who is like the most notorious like tail piper in the world. And he watched me catch. I was completely by myself. I'm like 400 yards from the nearest boat. He sees me throw the net 3 times, 3 fish in a row, and all of a sudden you see everything get thrown into the boat, and he comes hauling across the lake right to me, and he sets up like 15, 20 yards away from me, right? And that's
My
exactly, I just
favorite.
shook my head. Yeah, and I'm just shaking my head, and I'm like, whatever. And so he goes, and he starts talking to me, and he's like, you seen any down? Well, first he said, he goes, I couldn't take to watch you have so much fun by yourself. I had to come join you. And I'm like,
Oh,
whatever, dude. And yeah, exactly. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, whatever. And so he's sitting there, and he goes, you seen a bunch down there? And I'm there like in between my boat and his boat. I'm looking at probably about 500 fish. And I'm just like, no, there's really nothing down there, like
yeah.
go the hell away. And he's like trying to fish with Tootie, but he's not seeing anything. And there's 20 yards in between us, and there's 500 fish in between, and he's missing them. And so that's when it was like, it kind of clicked for me. I'm like, holy cow, like this is unreal. And from there, Isaac and I went to Devils, and we started pitching jig wraps. Or well, no, I lied. Sorry. From there, we went to Sturgeon Bay, and I was seeing these giant pods of what I thought were alewives.
Hmm.
Um, and it was day 2 of the tournament, flat calm, and they're like just these super schools. And I told Isaac, I'm like, are those walleyes? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, let's cast and find out. And so we thought they were alewives. We cast it in there, and we doubled up on 28 and 29 inches.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, okay, this is next level insane. And so we ended up taking third in that tournament. And then from there, we went to Devil's Lake, and we were pitching jigging wraps into flooded timber, like literally in the trees. We were like pockets like
Jigging
this.
wraps in flooded timber up makes me like twitch. Ugh.
Yeah, dude. It was like if you didn't hit this circle, it was gone. But like
Yeah.
if you hit it, 40-pound test, 40-pound fluorocarbon, and like heavy rods, you'd set the hook and you're cranking them out of there. And we took 7th in that one. And so we took over the lead again for team of the year, because we were struggling a little bit that year. And then we went to Leech Lake, and Leech was where we like, that was the first time that we really were like, it's the only time in my career I've ever said going into a tournament that we're going to win the tournament. Like I'm the most like glass half empty guy, like, cuz I know what's going to happen, I know what happens.
Yeah.
But I found a bite on Monday where the shiners were running, and they were like, I mean, I'm talking like top to bottom full of shiners, and it was like National Geographic. You'd see inside the school of shiners, you'd see this one orb with like all the like shiners running away from it, and it was just
Uh-huh.
giant walleyes feeding like 4 feet down below the surface.
Yeah, that's
And so
insane.
we're in there just like every day we're catching fish, and my job was to check Walker Bay. And then Isaac found that bite late Monday, and he had like 24 pounds, which is a huge bag there. He had 24 pounds in an hour. And so he goes out different part of the lake on Tuesday, catches 22, goes out Wednesday in a different part of the lake, catches 23 pounds. So all week I'm just staying in Walker just to like, because everyone like sees my boat, but Isaac had an aluminum boat. So he was kind
Hmm.
of incognito. And so I'm just kind of diverting at that point. And it was the day before the tournament. I told him, I said, all right, I want to see this. Like, I want to get like see physically what we're going into before this. And so we waited till 10. We launched his boat, went out to the spot. I put the trolling motor down. I scanned. I go, oh, there's one. I pitch at it as we're drifting. He's coaching me. I'm vertical jigging this fish up. It's only 2 feet down. I look down and I watch a 29 eat my jig in a shiner. And I set the hook, land it. I get back in the trolling motor. I scan. I go, okay, there's 2 fish right there. I'm like, those look like small ones. Him and I pitched, and we both caught 19 3/4, and it's a slot there. You can only have
Right.
2 20. And like we caught the 2 unders, like boom, boom. And I looked at it and I said, dude, we're gonna win this tournament. Like, there's no way anybody can catch us as long as we do what we need to do. Like, it's game over. And day one, we went out and we had like 95 fish that first day. And day two, word got out that we had 95 fish because we were by ourselves on day one.
Yeah.
Day two, I had like 15 boats come with me to the area I was fishing. But I wasn't even mad because I'm like, out of all the boats that were around us, nobody touched a fish because they were all fishing on bottom like traditional,
Yep.
tactics. And we're pitching at these fish. I'm just like, I'm more annoyed because they're in my way, and
Right. Yeah.
we're video game fishing. And we had started out slow, like we weren't catching much. We had unders, or we didn't have our unders. We had like little overs, like 21 22s. And we moved to our secondary spot, and the shiners had moved. And Isaac gets on the main motor, I'm on the trolling motor, and I'm scanning back and forth. And we went a mile and a quarter before I finally saw the shiners again. I yelled him to stop. He stops. I scan. I go, oh, there's a big one. I pitch to it. Boom, it was an 8-pounder. Get back on the trolling motor. I'm like, oh, there's another big one. Boom, 6-pounder. We drop the cameraman off. I see 3 small marks. I go, there they are. We both cast at the same time. We double up on 19 and 7/8, box those. I run back up to the front. I find that third fish. Boom, 19 and 3/4. We had the winning bag within, I think, 15 minutes.
Did you run away with it in that tournament?
Yeah, we won by 4 pounds, I want to say. We had 22 on day one and 20, just under 20 on day two. But it was just one of those tournaments where like nobody had it yet. Like nobody had Livescope. Like we were the only ones that had it. And it was just, it was magical. Because it was just a numbers game. Like I said, I don't normally call my shot like that because it's just in fishing that too much can happen.
Yeah.
But like I'm big on statistics, and that was when I was like, okay, like nobody else is doing this. The odds of us catching 5 good ones, if we can catch 100 fish, are way better than the guys who are catching 10 fish a day.
Sure.
So that was a tournament. Like once we got Livescope, because so they take your top 4 for team of the year in MWC.
Okay.
And we had a 4th place finish at Spring Valley earlier that year. And then we had like a 15th at Erie, a 50th at Detroit. And then once we got Livescope, we went 3, 7th, and 1st in 3 tournaments in a row. And we ended up running away with team of the year that second year too.
Yeah.
So once it came to my life, it was like we had that, and then him and I won the MWC on Green Bay the next year, doing the same thing. Like water temperature dropped on us 20 degrees overnight, and everyone who ran up there turned around and like got out of there because they panicked because the water temp. We put the trolling motor down, turned, and I saw that there were in these, like, I'm sure you see it, like when, like I found on Green Bay, like when these fish get spooked, when the water goes clear, when it goes super cold, they have these big changes. They go into these like super tight balls because I feel like they feel safer in numbers type of deal.
Yep.
And so they go in these super schools, and I literally put the trolling motor down. I was like, screw it, let's take a drift and see what happens. Put the trolling motor down. I scan. I go, oh my god! And it was, it took us till about 9 o'clock to get them to eat, but it was 9 o'clock we caught our first fish. By like 9:40 we had our 6th fish, and we had 36 pounds. I think we won that one by 5 pounds too.
I love that.
So
when that happens, just like that they're there and it's just a matter of time, and I'm not going to leave those fish, but you get that bite window and it's just going to be magical. That's just like, I notice the same thing in Ocano every single year that I fish up there. Like those bite windows, some days when the conditions are shitty, like they're going to open their mouth at some point, and you better be ready when they do, because they can be short but magical at the same time.
And that's what I love with, like, the reason why I love Livescope, because there's all the idiots out there that are the anti-Livescope, and it's, for me, it's not so much like I know a lot of guys that have Livescope that still suck. You know what I mean? Like Like
Yeah.
if live well, and the thing is, like, if Livescope was like the winning factor, I would have won way more tournaments than I have since I
Oh my
got it.
God.
You know,
Yeah.
like it for me, it's just a factor that, because like I'm a very inquisitive person, right? Like I want to understand the why. I want to understand
Yep.
what, why these fish are doing what they're doing, because I don't want to just catch fish to catch fish. Like I want to
Hmm.
understand them so I can apply it everywhere.
Yeah.
And this, like, it allows me to get instant feedback. I can make minute changes, like
Hmm.
just the other day when I was casting for him, just my cadence, you know what I mean? And like a color change, you can get instant reaction to them, and you can understand what these fish are doing, and a lot of it too is like, last year we took second in an aim, and I really think the on the lax, and the biggest thing that changed, that allowed us to do that was I was fishing in an area where now everybody fishes back there. I had a few years where I was the only boat back in there, and I was either winning or taking second or third every year for like 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
And now, there's 30 boats, 20 boats that are back there. But like last year, these I knew that area well enough to where I knew there was this big school of fish that everyone was getting distracted by, right? There was a pod of 18 to 22, 23 inches, and everybody's fishing back in there on that pod. And it just so happened that Hoyer was back in there fishing too, and he had won a local tournament the day prior.
Hmm.
So not only were these people seeing these big pods of fish, but they were also seeing Hoyer adjacent in the area. So like, oh wow, this is, they were also kind of boat following a little bit. And I sat back like a half mile back on the other side of the area, and just out in kind of the abyss, and I was seeing way less fish, but the quality that I was seeing, was way better. So I was playing the numbers game. Like, okay, I understand that, I saw those fish. I know what quality those are. Those aren't the ones I need. I know what I'm looking for when I see it. Boom, I'll catch it. And it's just another tool that gives me as much information as I can to kind of break down what I need to do. And, you just kind of break it down faster. You still have to be a decent fisherman. It's just, it's giving you more information quicker.
Right. Yeah. That's my whole thing too, especially for new people that are new to Livescope. It's just cutting down the time on the water that it would normally take for you to find those fish, figure out if they're going to eat. If they're not, leave them alone and go find other ones, as
Yeah.
opposed to
And
before we
for,
just
for
get out
me,
there and wish.
I don't have to catch them too. Like for tournaments,
Mm-mm.
it's, for me, if I catch a couple, if I catch a couple right away, then I get confidence, like, okay, I can catch these fish doing this technique, whatever. I'll just go into pre-fish mode, and I won't even touch the rod. I don't even need to sore mouth them. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of
Yep.
catching them if you know? It's just like when you're pre-fishing for a guide trip, you start looking around and be like, okay, they're here. I have confidence that my techniques will work, that I
Hmm.
have the programs to get them. And it just saves me so much time. I can just go in, drop a waypoint, like for me, I don't, like in tournaments nowadays, I don't get as much pre-fishing time or like actual fishing time, because, it's not that I'm complaining by any means, but you put a giant billboard on your boat, you can't hide from people,
Yeah.
so when you're on somewhere where, you fish a lot, for example, someone sees you there, it's human nature to be like, well, I got to check that out, so a lot of it I don't get to really, expand as much as I'd like on a lot of these areas. So it's, I have to have that confidence. Okay, they're there. I know I can catch them. All right, let's move on and go,
Hmm.
look at something else,
Yeah.
so it's probably my favorite tool. If you were to take it away from me, I'd be a very crappy person. I caught fish before it, but I don't
Right.
really want to keep them without it anymore.
Yeah, that's what I always say too. I mean, it's like, yeah, we did this like just fine before, but now we're learning new things, new ways to catch them, like how I catch walleyes. And the hybrid striped bass here is just literally you get it in front of the fish and you literally just, it's like fishing big Lakers through the ice. You just start taking the bait away from them. You don't have to twitch it. I mean, I could do the same thing with a jig wrap, literally just like get their attention, get them to flip up on it, and then just take the bait away. I never used to
That's
do
my
stuff like
favorite.
that.
That right there means
Oh,
you're
yeah.
about to have a good time. There's
Yep.
little feeding pins that they do, or when they do one of these things and then come up, it's like, oh boy, here we
Or
go.
both. I mean, what like the biggest walleye that we caught last year? I mean, I watched that thing flip left and right, slowly,
Yep.
just all the way up as I'm coaching this woman through this fish, and then it bit, and it was 9.5 pounds of that one, right
Yeah, I
there.
remember that fish. Yep. That's
Which for
awesome.
Kansas, I mean, that was December 17th.
No kidding.
But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, just like cold water, slow and lazy. But when they do that left, right, and sometimes they'll disappear from the cone because they're circling it and they're like stalking the bait on the way up.
Mhm.
It's so fun.
That's the I'll send you a video once we get off this of when we were in Sturgeon Bay last weekend when I was throwing those P10s at them. It's the coolest video I've ever had, of live scoping. I, cast it off on the break line, brought him back, and that fish, was down here, I'm up here, and he turned vertical, and I just was twitching it like, it's literally the cadence was twitch, twitch, and then he'd
Yeah.
come up, and it would be twitch, twitch, and then he'd get right on it, and he's literally sitting on it, and I pull it away from him, and he comes up like that, and I go twitch, 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 twitch to take it away, and he just, I mean,
Yeah.
just got the rod out of my hand, and I'm like, I mean, it literally both side. I watched him eat, and
Mhm.
you see it on live scope where he charges up and he hits it and turns, and I'm over there like a school child, just screaming like, "Oh my god!"
It
It's
never gets
just,
old. That's like I do this
I know.
300 days a year and it never gets old. I could sit and without even a rod in my hand, just watch my clients do it. And then when that fish commits, or even when it doesn't commit, I'm like, oh my God. Like I just get so
Yeah,
jacked up.
it's like, I think the coolest fish I caught aside from that P10 fish the other day, was one of the first fish I ever caught when I started doing bobbers with live scope. And I was on Mille Lacs, and they have mud flats out there. It's just like offshore
Hmm.
structure. And I was fishing above the structure, I was 4 or 5 feet up above, and we were in 18 feet of water. So I was set like 16 to 15 feet down. And all of a sudden I come off the edge, but I wasn't paying attention. So I come off the edge and I see this fish off the edge, and I'm like, oh, whatever. Just like, I mean, muscle memory. It's just like you see
Yep.
fish, pitch at fish. Like it's not even a question.
Hmm.
And so I see this fish, and I just pitch at it, not even thinking to adjust my bobber because I'm in like 36 feet of water now, and I'm set for like 15 feet down. And I see it, I pitch at it, and I'm like, oh, dang it. Like that was dumb. But it hits the bobber stop, and I'm 17 feet above this fish. And this
Yeah.
fish is just swimming, and all of a sudden it goes like this. It goes straight vertical, and then it just straight up. And I'm sitting there watching, and I go, no way, no freaking way. And I'm like just sitting there saying, like, there's no way. And I'm literally watching it come up. I'm like, there is no way this fish is about to eat. And I look, and all of a sudden I see my bobber just go bloop.
Yep.
I'm like, holy cow, like I
Yeah.
just watched that fish come up almost 20 feet. Like it's wild to see what these fish will do. I mean, I had a jerkbait fish the other, or no, I shouldn't say jerkbait, but P10 fish, where I casted it, I'm just drifting. I'm not even reeling it. It's just 25 feet away from the boat, and I'm just slow twitching it. And there's no fish following me. It's just I can see bottom, whatever. I'm just twitching it. I'm 8 feet down in 18 feet of water. This fish comes. I see it all of a sudden appear on bottom, and all of a sudden I see it just rise up. And I'm not even reeling the jerk bait. I'm just drifting and just pop, pop, pop.
Hmm.
Not even reeling. I'm just popping it in its face. And this freaking fish comes up and just roundhouse that bait. And I'm like, that was like a 5 minute cast, and I got a
Yeah.
fish to eat. Like, what the heck,
Painful.
But
Painful.
when you see him do it, it's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. That's
But
fun, man.
I can't even blind fish anymore because it's just like my ADHD. Like I'm just so locked in when I'm live scoping. So when I'm like not live scoping, I'm just kind of like not even dialed in, just kind of looking off in the distance, just like not paying attention. So I
It's
need
awful.
that.
I do the same thing.
Like I want to watch it eat. I don't like, that's why I'm so anti-trolling. Like I want to be like doing it, like trying to make it happen. And when I do make it happen, it's like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like for me too with trolling and stuff. I don't like the spots on the lakes here are so small. It's hard to set up a pass like with boards and stuff. And that's why a lot of the
Yeah.
guys that troll or that troll well down here rely on lead core.
Yeah.
Just because the spots are so small, you can weave in and out and make hard turns and stuff. So when I go up there, that's like somebody asked me on the YouTube video that I posted yesterday why I wasn't using perspective mode or anything at all. And I'm like, dude, that's like my vacation up there. And like I stare at the screen, live scope, guiding every day for, however many days a year. And I didn't have it down hardly at all. I was just relying on side imaging and just setting up a drift and just going for it and enjoying being up there versus like, I don't get to do it super often like that down here. So that's why I didn't choose to use it.
No, and up there you don't really need it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we did, like with Isaac, we were doing that casting program that I was telling you about, but like straight live scoping, you don't need it. Like
Mhm.
I mean, you really don't. You're fishing shallow flats, and I truly think sometimes in those shallow clear water flats, those fish get affected by it. Like they just. I've noticed in shallow water sometimes those fish can get spooky, especially that time of year. And the more
That's
you're moving the
exactly what I
trolling
said.
motor and stuff, it's like just drift it. You're gonna be better off.
Plus all the boats. I mean, the pressure, it's Insane.
I turned around that first day. I was by myself for a bit, and I wasn't paying attention because I'm just, so zoned in. And all of a sudden I turn around, there's like 40 boats behind me, and I'm like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
where did all you people come from? And it's just like
Yep.
it's a communal area. It's not like I was on any secret hotspot, but it's just like how I knew there was people around me was because of like I'm watching the fish. They're just being super skittish and like weird, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's why you're freaking out. You know what I mean? Because all of a
Yep.
sudden it's the war zone. It's crazy to see what happens to those fish.
Yep. Well, on that, I mean, it just is what it is. They're getting smarter, and you got to become a better angler to figure out how to catch them when they get
Oh, it's
smarter like that.
it, it's crazy. Like even on Green Bay, I've noticed like well, for example, last year, for the longest time, how we caught every fish come August and July and everything. We're bombing jig
Hmm.
wraps on these fish. It's all reaction. And I would say honestly, no lying, I caught 85 to 90% of my fish between guiding and tournaments on a death jig last year.
Yep.
And I barely caught any fish on a jig wrap or shiver, and I
Hmm.
truly think it's because so many people are just that's all they're throwing, and
Yep.
everybody's jigging nowadays,
Yep.
which is great to see, but everybody's doing it, so these fish are seeing it, and they're so used to it, and that's where that death jig, you put something different in their face, and it's a little slower, more finesse, and you kind of give those fish more of a chance to eat it, where they've seen that jig wrap a million times, and they're
Hmm.
kind of almost wise to it. It feels like the bite changes every year, and it's just every year it's a little bit different, and you
Yep.
gotta change things up just a little bit.
Yep. And that's what I tell clients too, especially ones that fish the same lake that I guide on or lakes that I guide on or whatever. I tell them, I'm like, if you only get to fish a couple times a year, I mean, yeah, you can have this as your crutch, but like things are ever changing anymore. And I have to keep them ever changing too, because I see so many guys out there that watch my videos, like my old ones, where that's all I used to use was like a jig wrap. Um, and I hardly ever pick up a jig wrap anymore. Um, and it's just, well, number one, I've had 9 or 10 of them in my hand. So I'm just like, if I can get away with just a jig and a plastic, but I see so many boats out there. And number one, they're all overworking the bait.
Yeah.
Or,
Wham,
yeah, I mean,
wham.
literally, like, oh, we're slabbing, like we're on Lake McConaughey. I'm like, bro, these fish are gonna look at that, flip you right off, and they're gone. You're never gonna catch that fish. Where
Yeah.
now, like, we're literally finesse power fishing these fish, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just slow
Yeah.
rolling a swim bait, painfully slow, just like you would do with the death jig. Just slow rolling it.
And that's what that death jig for me is. It's just like because they finally came out. My dog is joining us,
Oh,
but
hey.
yeah, she came in to say hey. But last year, like that death jig, they came out with that 3/8 ounce, and that was the best because it's super light and I can hang
Hmm.
it in their face for forever.
Yep.
And it's funny because like I see these people and they're just sitting there cranking that damn thing in, and for me, I mean, it's painful, dude.
Hmm.
That's all I'm doing. I'm not even like holding the reel. I'm just finger on the reel and I'm
Yep.
just slowly spinning it. And I throw down a 9.2 snare rod from JT, and that 9.2 is nice because it's so long. I can make like giant adjustments with just like a flick of my wrist, right? Like so those fish will be following it, and I'll just that right like this little movement right here will move it a foot. I'll bring it
That's
a foot up
wild.
and drop it down a foot up, and so I have all these like micro adjustments, and I can get them, they'll start chasing it because it's not like they come up and just cream it. It's
Hmm.
they're following it, and they're for me it's like I'm connecting with them. I'm triggering that bite where I'm fish is here, I'll cast here, I'll reel it, or what I'll do is like I'll drop it down right here, and then all of a sudden I'll bring it like right here, I'll bring it right up past their
Oh,
face,
yeah.
get them to contact it, and then I'll sit there and I'm doing like one of these things with them chasing it. And a lot of times what'll happen is, Isaac taught it to me the best was those fish a lot of times where they eat is right at the boat. I mean, you get to the end of your cast, and instead of just reeling up and bringing it in, you just let it pendulum down, and you just kind of do one of these things without
Hmm.
reeling, and that's where they eat is right on that fall. And
That's
with
awesome.
a jig wrap, you get one chance, you bang it in their face and they either eat it or they don't.
Yep.
So that's where that I think that death jig, kind of, and that's where the bobber honestly kind of changed. Every time I've kind of discovered a new wrinkle to Livescope. You kind of have to have the full complement. You got to have the slabbing comes into play. You get jig wraps, you get bobbers, jig in a minnow, jig in a plastic, death jig. I have all different like components, and it's all reaction speed based. And like I
Hmm.
have 5 rods rigged up with those 5 techniques, and everywhere I go, do one of those five, and you have to switch up, and every day is different. One day they
Sure.
want reaction, one day they want finesse. They're so finicky, and they'll change by the hour. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy. I mean, and you see people that are just throwing the same thing, and I'm over there just like rifling through stuff, and everyone's like, "Why do you have so much tackle?" I'm like, "You have no idea. Like, you literally do not know
That goes
how."
without saying if you're talking to the right angler, why we have so much tackle or so many rods or this or that.
Yeah, which there's times where do I need it? No, absolutely not. But then
Mm-hmm.
on the days where it's like all of a sudden you find these weird wrinkles, and it's like, oh wow, thank God I had that. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something good to have, and it's just playing with those different reactionary speeds, and figuring out their mood. And then there's times where you could throw a stick of dynamite and still not catch them.
Literally,
I think that's the worst thing about Livescope. I don't know how many times I've been flipped off by walleyes, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, if I catch you, I literally would win the tournament right now. And they're
yeah.
just sitting there like, or the worst is when they come up to it and you see them like, yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, well, literally, what was that? Why did you exert all this effort to not
Like,
eat it?
oh, it's the biggest BS. Like when I see them come charging up, and they like, so the worst lake in the country I've ever been to is Lake Pekegama up in northern
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it's a smelt fisher, but they're absolute megalodons. I mean, like you catch a 30 and it's like an 11-pounder. Like they look like upper Green Bay fish, right?
Yeah.
And like that's where I first came up with the bobber thing with Livescope. And it was because I'd have to sit there and hold my bait, like a jig and a leech. You'd have to hold it there, and that fish would come up to it, and they'd like let it like tickle their face, and they'd be like
I love
just
that.
sitting there doing this for freaking 5 minutes, and finally they'd just be sitting there like, and they just barely bite it, and you're like, and it's a 30-inch walleye. What the hell,
Yeah.
And so I start doing that, and it was I mean, that first tournament we did it on. I mean, granted, we didn't have the program dialed in, but I watched easily 100 to 120 walleyes come shooting up to my bait like it's game on, it's gonna happen. And they come up to it and they just stare at it for like 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Meh." And it's just like, why even do this? Like
Yeah.
you exerted that much energy for nothing. Like you're just like, what the hell? Like
Yeah.
nowhere in the country does that happen like that. That
Right.
like I love it, but that lake pisses me off more than anything. Hello, more than anything. And those walleyes are just so big. Or what'll happen? They'll come up and they'll like boop it. Like
Oh yeah, we
you'll
get lots of boops.
yeah, just
We're
like
just like a
boop.
push. Just like
I watched we went in shallow in sturgeon the other day, and we uh in like 6 feet of water, 7 feet of water, and they were up there spawning, and we could like
mm-hmm.
physically see them sunning themselves and spawning and whatever. And
Yeah.
the ones that weren't spawning that were sunning themselves, I mean, they're like 10-pounders, so you're pitching them trying to get them to eat. And I literally had one, a female, where she came up and she didn't even eat it. She just nosed my bait like out of her way. She just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like dodged it, and I'm like, what the hell was that? Like
That's
she
so
just like
cool.
went up to it, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And she just went, excuse me, and just
Yeah.
I hate you.
She has some fornicating to do.
Yeah, it was funny because you'd see a big female, and you'd see 5 males behind her, and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
chasing her. You try and pitch at them to like see if you could get like trigger reaction or whatever, and you literally see like the walleyes like barrel roll over your bait, like do evasive maneuvers around you, like, I
Yeah.
got one thing in my mind.
Yep.
Which, in all fairness, if I could only do that one time a year, I wouldn't be too worried about eating either.
Yeah, big time. Well, I was like, I think we caught two nice ones. One was in the night trolling video, and then there was a different one, but they were both females, and she was just covered in it. Like they were
Really,
definitely just
atta girl,
doing it. But
atta
we still
girl.
got, I mean, it was cool to still catch them, but yeah, it was just like, oh my God, you're disgusting.
Yeah, like
You
here's a
sloppy
towel or
girl.
something. Oh man, that's funny. That's
So
kind
have
of just
you
crazy that they'd eat.
what's that?
I said it's just crazy that they'd eat during that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and it was the same thing that we had. We had all those fish during the day that could really give give two craps about us. And we went back there with the P10s at golden hour, and I mean it was stupid. I mean
Mm-hmm.
it was the dumbest thing. Like literally, I made 7 casts, hooked 7 fish. Everyone was over 28. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just like, why now? Why weren't
Mm-hmm.
you're still doing the same thing right now?
Yep.
But
Yeah, well, East Side's getting busier now. I know Tom Boley just put an East Side video out yesterday today. but he was like, where was he? He was out in front of, well, I think he was at Henderson's at one point. I know he didn't go to Chateau. There was an forget where he was, but doesn't matter. But um yeah, it's I don't know. I love the East Side. I'm so enamored by it, and that's why I'm excited to get up there. And I mean, I think like so this next year in April, we're coming a week later than we normally do because we want to focus a little bit more, like do half the week on the East Side and then half just
Yeah, yeah.
banging the old West Shore stuff.
Yeah, if you generally like if you can hit like this week where you hit like the 17th, roughly, that's when like that bite starts. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's always like historically, that's the when it's like that week of like the 20, like 21st, 20th, that's
Mm-hmm.
always when it's money over there,
Yeah.
because normally on a normal year that ice hangs around a little bit longer and it's colder, it takes a little while to warm up. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was 3 years ago today. We were out there. Me and the boys were out there, and we had two boats, six guys, and between six of us, we had 175 walleyes, and only like two were under 24. It was just like unfreaking
That's
real. And
buck
this is
wild.
all midday. We're fishing daylight hours. We don't really
Mm-hmm.
fish at night a lot, and so we're just pounding them. And most time, guys aren't up there yet. Now it'll be a zoo, but most
Yeah.
times, if you can get up there early and get those first couple days, it's cool too because like you have waves of fish come in, because they spawn on the shoreline.
Oh yeah.
So we had all post spawners that day, and then I went out with a friend of mine a week later, and we had like 40 fish, and every fish was a pre-spawner. So it was
Nice.
like waves and waves and waves of fish. And
Mm-hmm.
I had one that I didn't get to weigh it because we didn't have a scale, but it was 31 and 3/4, and it was pre-spawn. I mean, it was a horse, and it was
Probably
probably
pushing like
right with my
14 or 15.
yeah, it was right around. I mean, my PB is 13.8, so I I landed it. And I'm like, oh my god, and I didn't even have a scale on it, and it was just like, I mean, all around, it was
Yeah.
huge. I think we had like three or four fish that day over 30, all pre-spawners. So
Uh-huh.
you go night troll at night, just I mean, it's the stupidest thing. Or go like spotlight and like actually cast at them. Like even if you spotlight and don't even fish, it's just like this is the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
It's
just
just
cool to see.
yeah,
That's fun.
yeah.
So what else is new? We'll kind of start wrapping this up. What's the guiding schedule look like for the rest of the year? Do you just kind of like book a little bit at a time, just depending on what your tournament schedule is, or
Yeah, depends on the year. Last year I had a really heavy schedule. This year I a little bit lighter to start. And I kind of did that on purpose. Um, my May is booking up pretty quick. I got a pretty busy tournament schedule in May, so that first part's a little heavy. And then I'll be guiding a Mille Lacs again, so I'm booking up pretty fast with that. I only have like 2-3 days left with that.
nice?
And I've been kind of holding back for August to book up because I have people just like August is like my busiest month, and for the
Hmm.
first time ever, I have all August off for tournaments except for I have an AIM one AIM, the AIM
Oh, okay.
championship. But other than that, I have the entire month off. So I've been kind of purposely keeping that month open. So once I start out there fishing June, July, then I'm gonna have a ton of people. I'm booking up pretty fast. I think I have about 2.5 weeks left open.
Good.
Um, there's a lot of like friends like you when they come to town. I want to try and keep a couple days open so I can go see buddies and do some exploring because uh a lot that we've been talking about for years because it's getting oversaturated up there.
I
It's
know.
you get up at the traditional island areas, and everybody's up there, and there's not many secrets left up there. Where it used to be like there's some low-key stuff you could go do, and now you're just dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of people,
Hmm.
which is it's that's fine. It's great to see. It's great to see people putting the trolling stuff away. But for these tournaments, you have to kind of find your own stuff, and the big fish they're a little farther away. They're a little harder to get to, and that's
Hmm.
kind of there's been a lot that we've talked about wanting to learn, and now that we have Livescope, it's kind of easier to break it down and to go fish these areas. So I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna take a week or so and go do some exploring and test these theories that I have on where we can go for these tournaments because eventually we're gonna have a big one back out there, and
Hmm.
you want to have that base knowledge. But I'll be doing that, and then I'll be guiding in Alaska again this year. So come September, as soon as if I had a horrible start. So if I make the NWT championship, I'll go straight from Devil's Lake to Alaska again for about a month. So
Yeah, that
that'll
looked
be,
pretty awesome last
yeah.
year.
I mean, dude, it's beautiful. I mean, it's Alaska's Alaska. You know, what I mean, it's the last frontier.
Yep.
Um, Fighting bears every day, which is pretty cool. That's like honestly that's part of the job. Chasing grizzlies every day.
Yeah,
That's an adrenaline that I can't even describe to people. I mean, it's to
I
know
I
that.
believe it.
I mean, to be within 10 yards of a freaking grizzly is like terrifying, but yet it's like the most freeing thing, and it's the most
Hmm.
beautiful place I've ever been. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, but it's also the most extreme place I've ever been. Like I've gone out, I was there 29 days last year, and 21 out of the 29 days it rained, and it's like, and Alaska rain is a different kind of rain. It's not like, oh, I got a little sprinkle today. It's like there was 4 different times where we got over 13 inches of rain in a 24-hour period.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like picture 13 inches in 24 hours, and
Yeah,
we're out fishing in it,
right.
and usually when it happens, it comes with like 40 to 50 mile an hour winds too. So it's miserable, dude. It tests you mentally, so there's days where it gets grueling, but I mean, it's when you get a clear day and you see those mountain ranges, and it's just the vastness. I mean, you're driving around, there's no people, it's just
Hmm.
it's all flying that we're doing, and it's pretty unreal. So
Yeah.
I'll be doing that, and then I'm heading back to Latvia again, or to Europe again in October. So be a busy guide season.
Yeah, big time. Well, it just sounds like a busy season in general, and busy is good. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I get real bored in the off season. So it's good to be busy and good to be fishing. And I've been forcing myself out, because like I said, I've had a little bit of a lighter start to the season, and I
hmm,
had just a really just crappy start to the season. I mean, I
yeah,
just mentally I wasn't in it going into it, and I knew it. Just trying to deal with some stuff. And you, as a tournament angler, and just as a fisherman in general, you have to be mentally locked in. I mean, when you do it every day. And
yep.
um, I had such a I had 7 days of tournament fishing so far this year, and I have one limit. So it's like it's not what I'm looking for. So
Hmm.
I the last 2 weeks I've been, get out there, fish as much as I can, and that's really kind of started to lock in. So I'm excited to get back out on the water in the next few days and kind of get back on that tournament grind and turn things around a little bit.
Well, you got to call Brennick so you can do a Make-A-Wish trip, the take a
Yeah,
kid fishing day.
absolutely. Man, I don't know with him. Like I take him fishing, and then he starts cheating on me with all these other walleye guys. I feel like I'm just one of his hoes, It's just I thought I was his walleye guy, but now he's fishing with everyone that ever is caught a walleye. So
Well,
he
maybe you're just going to be number
yeah, but
one.
I don't
So
like sharing, It's but it is, I will say with Brennick, it is getting past the spawn, so he doesn't really fish walleyes once you actually got to
he's
try
going
and
to start
target him.
thinking about brown bass.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit too difficult for him, so he starts to switch over to the easy fish. So it
Yeah.
he's we always call him that spawn hero. So once he gets his truck going, we'll teach him the way of the walleye come summertime. Hopefully we can kind of
There's a
keep
lot of guys that I call that up there in that area, but we're not going to talk about all of them.
yeah, you have that. I don't blame him, but it's honestly funny with me because I'm such a walleye guy. Like for me, just how I am and like just how I'm wired, I don't care about anything other than walleye. Like my
Yep.
goal has always been like I want to be the best tournament walleye fisherman I can be. And whenever I'm fishing, like that's my goal. Like even if I'm out fun fishing, like I'm working on something. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I'm practicing a program. I'm in my mind, I'm pre-fishing for, the NWT that's going to come in 4 years, So
Yeah.
last year I was fishing smallmouth up in Sturgeon Bay with Hoyer. I was helping him pre-fish for that Sturgeon Bay Open, and like back-to-back casts, I hooked like 5.5 pounders, and I just like set the hook, and I'm just kind of like looking, and I'm like, hey, John, I got one. And he like looks back, like, oh my God, like that's a giant. I'm like, oh, nice. Like, yeah, I'm just like, I don't even care, you know what I mean? Like, and I land, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I just kind of throw it back. He goes, you didn't want a picture with that? And I'm like, no, not really. And then all of a sudden
Oh,
I accidentally catch a 29-inch walleye on a like this little beaver tail bait. And I'm over there like, let's go, like hell
yeah.
yeah, and I was all excited. He had to take Livescope away from me a couple times because I found a couple pods of walleye, and I'm
And
like
that's all
chasing
you
him.
wanted to do.
And he's like, we're pre-fishing for a bass tournament, Max. And I'm like, yeah, but there's walleyes right here. Like, who cares about
Yeah.
this? So
Yeah.
I just can't bring myself to fish for anything. Like I even went bluegill fishing the other day, and like it was fun.
I
But after
saw
a while,
that.
I told my buddy, I'm like, all right, let's go catch some walleyes now. So
The canals are
it's just,
fun though. When I was up there, I was several years ago. It was just like too windy for me to want to deal with Winnebago, which is like I probably should have been out there, but I was like, let's just go around like and dick around in the canals, and I had a freaking blast just
oh, when
navigating
they
through all
go
of them.
when they go off, I mean, Bago's got some big gills in it.
Hmm.
Um, And I grew up fishing bagel. That's where I learned to walleye fish. And you'd catch some giant bluegills, and it's fun, when you can sit there, and it's always fun to go do something, just kind of turn, like what you said, kind of turn the brain off a little bit and
Yep.
not have to, try that hard. And
Mm-mm.
it was fun. And then, after once we got our limit, I was sitting there like, I had a theory about, Bago, where these fish are setting up this time of year. And we were talking because DJ is my tournament partner for Bago. And I'm like, we start talking, start talking about my theory. And I'm like, screw it, let's go. And we drove like 14 miles across the lake to
Hmm.
get there the last half hour of the evening to fish it. And sure enough, they were there. And I'm like, all right, fine. Like, this is a perfect day. Like, I
Nice.
did my go fishing, and then I got some work done,
Yep.
so definitely cool. But
Awesome. Well, right on, man. Well, we'll wrap this up here. I won't keep you any longer, but really appreciate you jumping on. And I know and I know that Taylor on the JMO podcast always says this to you and me as well when I was on there. This is not going to be the last time that we're going to talk on this podcast, because we could sit here for another 2 or 3 hours and digress on different subjects about this, that, and the other. But really good live scope talk, and that's the main reason I wanted to have you on, just because it's been fun watching us, because you and I had got live scope like around that same time period, and just how we both kind of progressed in that respect. And then you became kind of the top dog in the walleye tournament world, really just kind of bringing it all up. And that's my opinion, just
I
how I've
appreciate
seen
that.
it. So I love it.
Yeah, it's good to talk with another fellow live scope lover. It's getting sickening to see all the live scope hate out there. So it's good to talk to another live scope OG.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to start saving mean live scope comments, and I'll do like a live mean comments reading about live scope.
I'm gonna have them on a shirt. I always said I wanted to get like the hater shirt, like just
Oh yeah.
I sent receipts of everything. Like, let's go.
Yep. Yep. I love it.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, thanks again. And like I said, we'll talk soon. And I will see you in August for August.
Absolutely, bro. I'll see you
All right,
soon.
man.
Thanks
We'll
for
talk
having
to
me.
you soon. Appreciate it.
All right, see ya.
See ya.